Anyway, like I was saying, hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Anyway. All right, the new album's coming out. My band Crusade is releasing our first album, Rising Visionary, in April. What date in April, you might say? We're not telling you yet. But the first person to correctly guess the date of our release will get a free suggestion on one of the song suggestion live streams at the top of the stream. Go ahead and comment down below what date you think we're dropping. It's sooner than you think. So after the video I did on Watchmojo's top whatever hardest guitar songs of all time, I got a lot of people messaging me very shortly after that they did a top 10 metal guitarists of all time and saying I was going to be absolutely livid with this. So why don't we go ahead and take a look at that. Hold it, bitch. If you want to pursue a career in the music industry, now is the time to listen up. As you know, I harp on recording, mixing, and mastering on all the critiques that I do in any of the music that I listen to on this channel. It is an extraordinarily important part, over half the battle of making sure you're a success in this industry. That is why I am thrilled to talk about today's sponsor, Nail the Mix. Nail the Mix is the world's best online school for rock and metal producers. You will learn to record, mix, and master from the industry's best. It's like a virtual internship where you get to be a fly on the wall at a world-class studio and pick the brains of some of the world's leading professionals. Don't believe me? Let's ask a professional mixing engineer. I'm talking to Chris Baldani. He was the mixing and mastering engineer for Crusade's album Rising Visionary. Chris, as a professional recording engineer, mixing engineer, mastering engineer, how do you feel about Nail the Mix?
I think Nail the Mix is a great tool for new and established engineers alike to learn and brush up on different mixing techniques used by some of the best engineers in the business. Plus, you can get your hands on some awesome sounding files to songs you may already know and you may not.
One of the biggest tips you get in mixing is if you don't get the proper raw files, if it's not captured correctly, your mix is not going to sound great. And you know, at very least, you have well recorded, well captured sounds.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, just even being able to reference, there's times like when I was learning where I would think, man, this sounds really awesome. And then I would go listen to something else someone else was working on and think, oh God,
this maybe does not
what
sound
I'm
awesome.
working on is not as awesome as I thought.
I hate that feeling.
And I remember there being times where I had used Nail the Mix a couple times and I'd think like, man, that sounds crazy. I need to be doing that. Or, man, that actually sounds a lot closer to what I'm doing than I would have expected. What do I need to do in the mix to get there?
This month, Buster Odholm will be mixing 3 songs by Born of Osiris, Oceano, and Alt. When you join, you'll be able to get instant access to all the multi-tracks and be able to tune in for the live stream where he will mix it right in front of you from scratch and he'll answer all of your questions. You can also enter the monthly mixing competition. You can win a prize package with gear and plugins from Kali Audio, Neuro DSP, Bogren Digital, Joey Sturgis Tones, and more. You'll also get sessions from Devin Townsend, Angels and Airwaves, Dance Gavin Dance, Ginger, Monuments, and dozens more of incredibly talented musicians. Dozens of detailed mixing tutorials, access to members-only forums, and a ton more. If you want to take a real, substantial step towards becoming an actual music professional, go ahead, click that link in the description. Make sure you click that one so they know that I sent you. And get your first month of Nail the Mix for just $1. Again, just click that link in the description. First month, $1. Back to it. Watchmojo released this video like right after I got done doing my video. As a matter of fact, let's see. I released mine January 15th and they released theirs January 30th. Yeah, so I would be shocked if that video didn't kind of jazz them up to make another one so I would react to it. And I hesitated to do so even though I knew it would garner a lot of views. And part of that was because I literally said in the video, you shouldn't watch Watchmojo, and I'd be promoting that. And another part of it was, if I'm going to pull the trigger on this, I'm going to do it when it's going to do me the most good, which would be promoting our album. I figure I've gotten enough requests from fans who want to see me react to it, and also it's been long enough that they've gotten most of the momentum out of the video that, yeah, I'll go ahead and I'll do it. But first, Let's read some of your comments. Watchmojo ain't qualified to rank guitarists. Most likely true. Eddie Van Halen and John Sykes are hard rock guitarists, not heavy metal guitarists. We'll get to that later in the video. Can't wait for Become the Night to react to this. Laugh my ass off. Well, here we are. Let's see some of the replies. I'm sure all of them will be absolutely wonderful. I saw this and was like, I wonder if BTK's video had anything to do with this video. Almost certainly. On one hand, this list isn't as bad as the one BTK tore apart. But then again, someone needs to tell these people that Van Halen wasn't heavy metal. Me too, but more cause I want to see this list be torn apart, not cause I like his content. I personally think he's an elitist, and I find that kind of mentality insanely annoying. Really? You know what's more annoying than being an elitist? Calling people an elitist when you have no fucking clue who they are. I say this all the time. If you really think I'm an elitist, you should join us for a live stream sometime. Or watch my Guilty Pleasures video, for fuck's sake. I feel like most of the people who have a negative opinion of me are the ones who get rage baited into clicking on videos that are obviously inflammatory. They won't click on any of the content where I'm not being inflammatory and see that I'm actually, a varied, complicated human being, like most people with a normal personality. But I like Dream Theater, so therefore I think that everything I like is superior. I'm expecting to cringe as he goes on and on about Petrucci while ignoring other metal guitar players who are as worthy or more worthy to be on this list. Fuck that guy, Euronymous, Tom G. Warrior, Piggy. Who the fuck are these people, and who the fuck are you? If that makes me not a real metalhead or not a real music lover because I don't know all of these stupid, ridiculous fucking names, then go ahead. Kick me out of the community. I don't give a fuck. You guys can have all these assholes. I don't know how Dream Theater got to be called metal. But fuck it. If it's enough to get them in the metalum, but that shit feels wrong, man. People call me an elitist for talking about how fucking fantastic of a guitar player John Petrucci is, and then this fucking shithead is gatekeeping Dream Theater out of metal, for fuck's sake. If it makes me an elitist for looking objectively at the level of someone's technical skill on their fucking instrument and being able to compare it to one another, then god damn me to hell for being an elitist, I suppose. All right, let's get into this video.
Wimps and posers leave the hall. These are the Riff Master Generals. Welcome to Watchmojo.com, and today we're counting down our picks.
I can get down with Riff Master General.
Have you guys noticed that we've been promoting musicians like Ro Ransom or Austin Mahone in some of our
Nope,
videos?
and I don't give a single fuck.
For this list, we're ranking the most talented, influential, and important guitar players from the heavy metal genre.
All right, so our criteria are talented, influential, and important. I guess influential and important are basically the same thing. When you say talented, I don't inherently interpret that as like who's the fastest, who has the best technique. I think when it comes to riff writing and being able to craft a good metal song, I think that's equally as important and talented, if you will. But as with any of these lists, when it comes to greatest, the only thing you can get close to, I would say, is influential and inspirational and how they transformed the genre or the community. And I think that's got to be your primary criteria.
Number 10, Scott Ian, Anthrax/SOD.
So, full disclosure, I've never been a big fan of Anthrax. I don't think I've ever found anything that they've done particularly distasteful. I've just never found it interesting. But Anthrax are in the big four thrash bands, if you're not familiar. And one of the most important foundations of metal was that early 80s thrash sound. Well, I guess a lot of the 80s thrash sound. So yeah, I don't have an issue with Scott Ian being on this list, personally. That sounds like a fun riff.
Number 9, Kerry King, Slayer.
All right, full disclosure, I'm not the biggest fan of Slayer. I consider them to be substantially overrated, but this is how I understand it, and correct me if I am wrong. As far as I have been told, Jeff Hanneman is responsible for the lion's share of the riff writing and songwriting in Slayer, and Kerry King is responsible for the solos. Not even all of them, but a lot of them. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments section. While I'm not the biggest fan of Slayer, I think it's very clear, especially like I said, with them being in the big four, but them being as large of a frickin' meme as they are in the metal community and just the massive impact they have had on metal, definitely deserve to be on this list. But I would absolutely say if the riff writing is Jeff Hanneman, he much more deserves to be on there than Kerry King, because the Kerry King solos, suck. They suck. Just meandering, whining, indistinct bullshit. So again, for anyone who is deaf and or just fucking stupid, I am perfectly fine with Slayer being on this list. Based upon the knowledge that I have, I don't think Kerry King's the guy. That's a thick riff, I'll give him that. That's massive.
Number 8, John Petrucci.
And this is where everyone anticipated me complaining about everything or just going off and masturbating to how much I love John Petrucci. You guys are really fucking dumb. I mean, I've said more than enough about John Petrucci. I'm happy he's included on the list, but I wouldn't have been totally upset if he didn't make it. John Petrucci's influence on the modern metal landscape and everything that's happening right now, I think he does deserve to be on the list, but I could see if they substituted him for someone who's a little bit more rudimentary, like further back in the metal world. And technique-wise, he's better than pretty much every guitar player on this list.
The texture and complexity to his playing. Yet Petrucci and his bandmates have also proven themselves to be strong songwriters who allow their music to breathe.
There's a lot of people who don't think Dream Theater are strong songwriters. I don't think they have a broad concept of what music can sound like. You can not like it, that's fine. But I mean, if you listen to a broad swath of genres, like, and enjoy a broad swath of genres, you should be able to at least appreciate the talent level of the writing of what Dream Theater can do. I'm looking at you, Melonhead. If you're gonna try and sell to me that Swans is a viable songwriting band, which, I mean, I can see an argument in favor of that, but then you're going to shit on Dream Theater for not being good songwriters, I think the problem's you.
Number 7, Dave Murray, Iron Maiden.
Yeah, it's a good pick to me.
Adrian Smith, Dennis Stratton, and Janet Gers are all gifted. But we're gonna go with the man who's been with Maiden since the start, Dave Murray.
Seems like a good enough reason to me, frankly. I think I've said this before, Iron Maiden are like the world's most famous underground band. And I mean, like, follow me for a second. They do world tours and sell out massive arenas and have amazing live shows and are freaking outstanding. But you go up to most normal people in your day-to-day life, even people who love music, and be like, hey, you know Iron Maiden? And a number of them will be like, I've never heard of them, or will be like, I think I may have heard of them once. That, and even with all this fame, there is still something about the band where it feels like you're a part of a community and a family and not just another faceless fan in the crowd. There is something about that vibe with Iron Maiden that has never gone away after all these years, even with all of the money, all of the fame, and with the elaborate stage show. I think there's something extraordinarily admirable about that. I really love that. All right.
Number 6, Kirk Hammett.
No way.
Metallica/Exodus.
Dave Mustaine is higher on the list than Kirk Hammett. That makes sense to me, but if you're gonna pick a guitar player from Metallica, why wouldn't you pick James Hetfield? Of all the things about this list, that's the one that hurts me the most. And that's where I think on this list, they were headed more for the guys who have the most solos or the shreddiest solos in the band and just assumed, hey, these are the greatest guitar players in that band. And I mean, maybe technique-wise, not in Kerry King's place. But James Hetfield's riff writing is one of the most influential out of all metal ever, period. By all rights, he should be number 2 on this list. Yeah, Kirk should not be on this list. No offense to Kirk. I grew up with his stuff, and I have a soft spot, but no, sorry, man.
The key to Kirk's success in the group perhaps owes itself to bandmate James Hetfield's decision to primarily focus on rhythm.
Or maybe it's owed to his bandmate James Hetfield's ability to write some of the greatest fucking riffs of all time. Maybe that was part of it.
Number 5, Dimebag Darrel, Pantera.
If he wasn't on this list, that would be another massively glaring omission. Dimebag is an extremely influential guitarist, period, I would say. I mean, especially with his lead phrasing and articulation style, especially his articulation. His articulation was really, I think, the greatest thing about his playing. And he wrote some freaking dominating riffs, man. No pun intended.
He had taste. He had a heart. He had this thing called soul.
Thanks, Phil.
Number 4, Dave Mustaine, Megadeth.
Okay, so a lot of people thought I was going to be triggered that Dave Mustaine was so high up on this list. Considering how influential Megadeth is, and I mean, they wrote some great riffs, no doubt about it. I think that that's a good placement for them, frankly. But then if we're going to put Dave Mustaine as the pick for Megadeth, why wouldn't you put James Hetfield as the pick for Metallica? Okay. That James Hetfield thing's really bothering the shit out of me. Really bad. Like, overall, I really don't think this is a terrible list, but that's a very glaring omission. I think James Hetfield's influence and his importance to metal was greater than Dave's, but I still think that's a good placement for Dave. I would just put James Hetfield higher.
Number 3, Eddie Van Halen.
And here we are. So a lot of people were pissed off that Eddie Van Halen was on this list when he's technically not a metal guitar player. That fine line, that fine, very blurred line between hard rock and metal. And really, I would say the defining thing that makes Eddie Van Halen technically not a metal guitarist, even though his influence on metal is arguably the strongest out of anyone on this list. The sound was more blues-based, singer-songwritery, dance-forward than it was heavy riffage making you want to bang your head. Running with the Devil kind of does that a little bit for sure. Eruption has that like face melty vibe without a doubt. With the majority of their catalog, I would say, again, it's either a little bit more ballady or a little bit more 80s dance clubbish. It has a little bit more of that boogie, a little bit more of that swing, a little bit makes you want to move your hips more instead of bang your head and throw up some horns. Now, in Watchmojo's defense, like I said, Eddie's influence on metal is arguably bigger than Tony Iommi's. I'm not saying it definitively is, but I mean, Eddie's influence on metal is extraordinary. It's kind of hard not to at least mention him. So this one doesn't personally make me upset, honestly, though I can see why people would say he doesn't belong on the list.
The landscape of hard rock and heavy metal would look very different today.
1000% correct. I have to say, in general, Phoebe here did a lot better job with her monologuing over top of like their explanations of why they put these people on the list. Like their reasons that were written out are just so much better on this one. I mean, not flawless necessarily, but way better than the top 10 hardest rock songs on guitar. Dear Lord.
Number 2, Randy Rhoads, Ozzy Osbourne / Quiet Riot.
Okay, so I definitely think Randy should be on this list. I don't know that I would put him at number 2, but I could see the argument for him being at number 2. I've talked about Randy Rhoads at length before, so I'm not going to sit here and rehash all that, but I mean, a good pick. If we're going to include James Hetfield on this list, I would say bumping Randy down to either 3 or 5, somewhere in there, would be accurate for me, but this doesn't make me mad by any means. I was told by my friend Bill Franco, who grew up in the 80s and is a massive Eddie Van Halen devotee. In the 80s, you basically had 3 guitar players that everyone was chasing after. Eddie Van Halen, George Lynch, and Randy Rhoads. Those were like the 3 guys at the time. So basically her description here is just quite accurate.
Here are some honorable mentions.
All right, Chuck Schuldiner from Death. You guys have been trying to get me into Death for a long time. I still don't think I'm ever going to get there. I think there was one Death song I gave a plus sign. It was like something about the spirit or soul or something, but it was like all lead guitar stuff. I see his name come up all the time in my comment section. Man, not seeing him on this list is difficult. He pioneered an entire, very large and important metal genre, and he was no slouch on the instrument. Like, the guy was good. If I were to have to bump off someone from the list, I would probably bump off Scott Ian and put Chuck in instead. But I'm also okay with him being an honorable mention. I feel like putting John Sykes as a metal guitarist is even less accurate than putting Eddie Van Halen as a metal guitarist. His was very clearly glam. It was rock. It was definitely hard rock. If we're going to include Whitesnake, then we have to start including Guns N' Roses and Motley Crue and all these other guys, and that's just not That's just not. No shit talking on John Sykes. He's a fabulous guitar player, but I just don't think this is the right list. All right, Glenn Tipton. If we can't have Eddie Van Halen on this list, then I would say Glenn Tipton is the absolute no-brainer as to who's going to take that spot. And with the influence that Judas Priest has in the metal community, I would say top 5. I would say probably top 5.
Number 1, Tony Iommi, Black Sabbath.
No, Black Sabbath is not my vibe, and yes, I will talk all of the shit on Tony Iommi, but Black Sabbath are the originators of heavy metal. There's no denying it. Without Black Sabbath, there's no heavy metal. While I don't think that necessitates him having to be number 1, it very easily justifies him being number 1. Overall, this was not a terrible list. Was it a perfect list? No. But it really wasn't that bad. This list made 100,000 times more sense than their top 10 hardest rock songs to play on guitar. Anyway, that'll do it for me, guys. What did you think of this list? Let me know in the comments down below. If you like this video, if you like what I do on this channel, hit the like button, subscribe. It's a good time to subscribe anytime. My band Crusade will be releasing our album very, very soon. You can follow me on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at Become the Night. Thank you guys so much for watching. See you in the next video. Rock on.